as a human being, creating a business is for grown folks. I say that a lot because it's true. Running a business is very deeply a psychological process. And then now I'll say, and as a Black woman and wife and mom, there's so much psychology.
Hey guys, welcome to episode number 180 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. Today, I got to sit down with Stephanie LaFlora. She is the founder of Crownhunt, this extraordinary business that teaches stylists how to style, cut, color, condition, and care for curly hair. Now, just hang on to your hats and glasses because I literally had my jaw drop in this interview. You guys are going to love this interview. Several times where Stephanie shared with me statistics like it was not until 2021 that stylists were actually taught how to take care of curly hair. You guys, they were not taught how to deal with curly hair. Do you know how many human beings have curly hair? Do you know? About 65% of the population. So yeah, you heard that correctly. Stylists were not being taught how to treat 65% of the population. If you have a friend who has curly hair, I know I do, and it has been a struggle for them. Is that not always the truth? You hear people going, I can't get it cut straight, or then I get it blown dry, but then it doesn't look right. And I have to find the right stylist who understands my hair. What you guys want to know is that until Stephanie created Crownhunt, these stylists had nowhere to go to learn how to work with curly hair. They learned from each other. They learned by themselves. It was this completely entrepreneurial, grit-filled, gorgeous spirit that all of these stylists had just because they wanted it. Enter Stephanie, who I am now convinced is a genius. She came in and said, well, let me teach these guys how to do this. Let's make this part of the education for stylists and let's make it affordable because this is a group of entrepreneurs we should all be investing in because they come out young, they come out hungry, they come out having to do all of this by themselves. Let's teach them some stuff and watch them explode. And that's what Stephanie is doing these days. Now, I do want to share something that happened off camera that I was absolutely blown away by. Is Stephanie and I were having such a great time chatting that at the end, I just said, you are such a role model. I'm so excited to see what happens. And I meant it. I invite her at the end of the episode to come back. And I mean that because I think what she's doing is incredibly challenging. I think she's going against the grain, right? And I think as a Black woman in 2023, launching a business like this, getting funding for stuff like this, you guys, that is less than 1% of venture capitalist funding goes to that demographic. So let's change that. Anyway, so I was asking her as a human how she continues to pick herself up. How does she get through the really hard times? And she told her husband that she wants him to say to her when she's struggling, this magic phrase, imagine the power of telling this story. It made me tear up, might make me do it again. You guys, the power of our stories is not in the wins. It's in the parts where it's really freaking hard. It's in the parts where it's unsexy. It's in the parts that nobody else knows about. And so today, I hope you take this episode. If you're struggling in your business right now, if you're having one of those moments where you're like, oh my gosh, does anybody know I exist? This is going to be an episode that is going to be one you're going to love. All right, so pop in those earphones. And let's get to it. Stephanie, welcome to the Game On Girlfriend podcast. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Love it. I love it. So I'm going to give you a hot second just to introduce yourself to the community. Talk to us about what you do, why you do it, and how you got started.
Yeah, so I'm Stephanie LaFlora, and I am the CEO of Crownhunt, which is a platform educating stylists on curls and coils and business. And the way that I got into that was actually by being rejected from several hair salons because they didn't know how to style my hair. And I always like to tell people, it's not like I was trying to go in and get something super complicated. I was going in to get a wash and blow dry. So something very simple that every stylist should be able to do. And as you can see, and even if you can't see, I've got a nice little afro. And so that's the texture of my hair. And that's when I learned that the reason why they couldn't do it is because in cosmetology school, they did not teach how to style or care for curly and coily hair. And that was really shocking for me to learn. And I dug into it and did some research, and it turned out it was absolutely true. And so as a woman who had been in tech startups and building companies and finding problems and building solutions, it was obvious to me that this was something that I wanted to explore. So I'm a consumer who was turned into a beauty business owner because of the way that the whole industry is set up.
It's amazing. So, but wait, I want to go through this. So, would you say you were rejected from hair salons? And were they just like, dude, we can't help you? Like, what did they say? Like, we just don't know how to
Pretty
treat your
much. I
hair.
mean,
Or...
they were very embarrassed. They were very apologetic. They were as graceful about it as they possibly could have been. So just to kind of set the reality here, basically what happened is I would make appointments at different salons and I would show up to the appointment. I'd be in the lobby, wait, I'm here for my appointment. And they would look at my hair and they would say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we've made a mistake. We can't do your hair." I didn't get to the chair. I didn't, none of that. It was in the lobby at the front desk. I was turned away. And this was at like 5 or 6 different salons. So it wasn't just one place. And I had never experienced that before. And what it made me realize is that I had always found my hairstylist through word of mouth. I'm originally from Chicago, which I always rep. And in Chicago, I have a huge community. This was when I actually had moved to Denver for a new job that I experienced this. So I didn't know anybody. I was just there for my job. I didn't have any connections or anything like that to anybody to help me find a hairstylist. So I was just calling around to salons in my neighborhood that I was just looking for a local salon. And it turned out that none of the local salons could do my hair.
Wild. That is so crazy. So you just did the coolest thing as an entrepreneur though, right? You're like, there's a massive hole in the market, massive. What are we going to do about it? I mean, how did this come to you? Like, were you like, okay, we have a problem and I want to solve it? Is that sort of how it felt? Or what were the next steps? Like, what happened to you to go through this, to go from like,
Well,
what do you mean you can't do my hair to like, I have an answer for this? Like, it's so cool.
yeah, it's funny. People always ask me like, well, how did you think like that was the thing you wanted to do after that? And I was like, I don't know. It's just the way my brain works. But I just thought like, wow, now this is a pretty big problem. I didn't even know this was a thing. And so then I got a cohort together, like a focus group of hairstylists and hair educators and hair product creators, and really worked with them to discover where the gaps were in the whole entire hair experience. And so I thought, well, education, clearly this is one big gap, but what else? And so through that, mapped out all the different opportunities within the hair industry. And again, this was the kind of work that I did anyway, but it just wasn't for this. It was always, whatever a client needed. And so it's something I was already practiced in. So I just kind of went through that similar process and then discovered, wow, there's really something here. And so built Crownhunt off of that. And it really evolved because initially, I would just want to solve my own problem, which is finding a stylist who can do curly hair.
Right.
But then I realized that would be a two-sided marketplace. And you got the chicken egg problem of how do you get the stylists if you don't have the consumers? How do you get the consumers if you don't have the stylists? So then we on this exploration to figure out, well, how can we address that? And that's where education came in. Obviously, education is the biggest gap. It literally didn't exist. I think Paul Mitchell and Aveda, which are the biggest hair schools, started teaching curly hair in 2021.
Shut the front door. Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious. And so that's following the whole racial awakening of 2020. That was the response to that. And so this has become a bigger conversation that people are having. So then the education really became a way to enter the market, but without having the chicken egg problem, because one class can serve 1 million stylists. Now it's a subscription where stylists can get continuing education for an annual subscription. And so currently we're building up the stylist side of the marketplace in order to then connect them with the consumer. So that's kind of our bigger plan.
Oh my God. I love this so much. You know what I love, Stephanie, too, is you weren't like, let me fix this in my neighborhood. You're like, world, we're taking this on. Let's go. Like, we're like, cause seriously, you could have done that. You could have been like, I'm going to teach stylists how to do this right now in my house. Like you just like blew it up. You're like, I'm not playing small. I don't think so. That is so cool. I mean, okay, but you do have to walk us through because we've got women listening right now who just went, how the hell did she do? Like, how do you go from like, this isn't working to that big of a venture? I mean, that is so awesome. But how did you, like, what happened in your brain? Like, I love this question because there's so many people on the show and they're like, well, I took this one class and I just knew. or I saw this problem and I was like, I'm going to fix this. Like, what happened to you in your body, in your head? Like, what were the
Interesting.
first couple steps?
Oh, I love that. Well, first I was mad,
Yeah.
right? Like, I wasn't sure what kind of experience I was having. And I had just moved to a new city, right? And I moved to that new city with my then fiance, now husband. And so honestly, my initial reaction in my body and in my mind was, oh no, where have I moved to?
Yeah, I
Like,
get that.
did I move to a place where I am not welcome? That's actually what my first response
Mm,
was. It was more personal. And then I'm like, okay, well, I don't like this. This is not right. How do I fix this?
mm.
And if I'm having this experience, so are other people. And then I started to meet people who were having that experience. So I eventually I'll talk through that journey of like kind of how I got there. Because I didn't immediately think I immediately thought I want to solve this, but I didn't immediately think how to solve it. Other than I did think, oh, what if there was an app where you could find a stylist that could do your hair that was, that understood how to do curls. So I did think about that first. But then my first mission was to get my hair done. Okay. That was my first mission, right? So all these people were rejecting me. What am I going to do? I need to
Yeah.
I had a new job in a new city and I need to look right. I need to feel good.
I love the
So
simplicity of that, Stephanie. That's so honest of like, listen, it came from like my own, like, what the hell? I love
yeah,
that because like you said, if you were feeling that, other people were feeling that too, right?
right. I started thinking like, well, how could I find a stylist? So I started Googling like black hairstylists. Why black hairstylists? Because black stylists know how to do black hair. I
Right.
didn't
Yeah.
know though that it was because they were self-taught. I thought it was because they had learned it at school. So that was like a whole like level of empathy and gratitude for all these stylists that I know my whole life had been styling my hair. And I realized that they like learn how to do this out of love and appreciation for me. People like me to come into their salon, and I had never even thought about how hard it was for them to actually be great in their craft without the industry supporting that. So that was a big aha for me. And then I had this moment of like, I know what I'll do. I'll look for a hair braider because hair braiders is very specific culturally, typically, and they almost always are braiding hair like mine. So I was like, I bet I can find a hair braider because that's a tag or whatever, or a keyword that I could actually Google that's specific enough because hair salons are not called typically. Today, there's a lot more of these, but typically it wouldn't be called curly hair salon or black hair salon, or
Mhm.
it wouldn't say anything that would let me know that. It would just
Yeah.
be like, Sarah's salon. So how
Yeah.
am I supposed to know if they can do? I can't call every salon in the doggone city to figure out who could do my hair. So I needed to figure out something that like kind of had some cultural element in it. So
So
I was like,
smart.
braiding hair. That's what I'll Google. And then I found a braider who's incredible. And what's so funny is once I got my hair braided, as I would be walking around the city, I would have Black women that I do not even know literally across the street say, hey, hold on one second. I'm coming across the street. Let me talk to you. And they would come over there and they would say, who did your hair? And that happened to me everywhere I went because I
Wow.
wasn't the only person having this problem. So that
Right.
like really, that like validated for me,
Totally.
like, okay, this is a real thing and this is something that I should solve. So that was kind of like the journey there. And then from there, it was like, okay, well, I can't do this alone
Mm.
and I need to bring people in that are experts. And so that's when the focus group came to be. And the focus group was really the thing that kicked it off. Like that was when I felt like, okay, the people in this industry are telling me these details. I believe that there's something really here. And also when I was with them, I discovered that the opportunity was even bigger than I imagined because the curly hair experience is pretty much trash, from finding a stylist to getting your hairstyle to finding the right products, like the whole thing. So I was like, oh, this isn't even just like this is a way bigger business than I even imagined. And I was thinking national from the beginning. And so that is really what sent me off on this journey. And again, I was in tech startups, so I was familiar with like building products and the tech side of things, even though I'm not a developer, but I work with developers every day. And so it was just like some of the parts of that weren't as intimidating for me. And also like hair is something I absolutely have always loved. People who know me have always known me as a person who changes my hair a lot and does, so it just felt like it just aligned in so many ways with my interests. And I also like that it's something that is actually addressing a cultural problem, but it's addressing it from a unique angle. And I had
Mhm.
spent a lot of time in companies that are always trying to change the world, and my experience of that is that it becomes more about ego very
Yes.
quickly than
Yeah.
it actually does with impact, because changing the world is something that you can wave your flag up and feel really good about yourself, even whether you do it or not, that you're in the pursuit of it is good enough. And what I like about hair is that it initially feels frivolous. It initially feels chill, relax, not high maintenance, not too, it feels
Not too
like
serious. It's not too heavy.
not too
That kind of,
serious, right?
yeah.
It's not heavy. And that's why I love it, because it's sneaky. As you start to unpack it, you can actually have really deeper conversations because people are not guarded.
Oh my God, I love that. That is so smart how you figured this out. I'm going through all the things that happened in your gorgeous brain for you to be like, okay, so I have this problem. I'm pissed. Other people are asking me where I got my hair done. How do I even figure out how I do this? And figuring out the braids is brilliant, right? Like your ability, Stephanie, to like connect the dots is quite extraordinary. So we've got that piece down. And then like you use that as validation, just people asking where you got your hair done, and then going on to this focus group, which I'd love to discuss as well, and recognizing, like you said, it went from, I just want to look good at the office to holy cow, you guys, there's an entire sector of society that is not being serviced.
Yeah,
And
and it turns out it's a huge percentage.
it's
And that's
unbelievable. Yeah.
like digging into the data, which is my background as well. 65% of the people in this country have curly hair. That's nuts. That's crazy. And I promise you, you could talk to anybody who has curly hair. Anybody. Doesn't matter what their background is, don't matter what complexion they are. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. Every one of them has a common story. One, they did not think that their curly hair was beautiful when they were growing up, no matter what culture they come from. And then two, getting their hair done has been a nightmare most of their life. And they know they cannot go to any salon.
Yes. You know what? You're reminding me, actually, now that you're saying this, I'm thinking of all my friends who have super curly hair, and that's correct. That it's always this ongoing conversation of like, it can't get cut properly. It doesn't get styled properly. The blowouts don't work quite the same way. That's amazing. That's amazing. Can we jump back quickly though to the focus group? When you say that, because I know I almost felt like somebody went, wait, how do you do that? You mostly went to stylists. Was this like an informal study group? Did you actually pull people in? How did you run that?
So one, how I found the people, because it's not like I had previous relationships with all these people. I didn't. I do now, but I didn't at the time. Honestly, social media, I was looking
Okay.
out to see like who were the stylists. Well, one of them was a stylist that I had. I brought her in, and then she referred me to a few other stylists. But then I was looking for hair educators, like who is teaching this? Somebody's teaching it, because I got my hair done my whole life. So somebody's teaching somebody. So that's when I started looking into like, what is this informal education world that's out there that's getting the job done, that's not happening from institution, right? And that's when I discovered some educators who were on social media. That was the main way they were getting their audience. And they were influencers in the curly, coily hair space. And they had been stylists for decades. They had gotten awards. They had salons. They were like, really high up in the hair professional world. And because they had these skills, people kept asking them, can you teach me what you know? And so they became educators. So there's this whole world of hair educators, especially ones that were out before 2020, that have really just built a reputation for doing great hair and built a secondary career on teaching other people how to do it. So I have this real deep appreciation for the self-taught folks that are in this space. So I got those type of people together, and I just reached out. I told them what I was doing. I was saying, like, I want to connect and learn more about your experience and what you see as opportunities in the industry. So I just reached out to them on email and DMs, whatever I needed to do. And again, it was stylists, hair educators, and hair product creators, because I was trying to look at the whole scope of the professional side of the industry, and got them together to talk about where are the gaps. So I organized that on Zoom, where everybody was in different states.
Oh,
And it
wow.
was like a 3-hour session, and I had it was structured. Went in with a plan, knowing exactly how I was going to work through it all. Some of the key parts of the structure were actually having time where people map out their process. So we use like a giant Miro board that's like a software, and everybody can basically use the same. It's almost like having a digital whiteboard, and everybody in different places can use it at the same time. So we use that. And so then I had people actually map out their process, like, how do clients find you? What's the journey that they're on during their experience? How do they get products? Do you sell products? Like literally just having people map out, like in boxes and words, what are the steps? How did you get your education? How do clients find you? where do you make your money? Like
Yeah.
all of that. It was a long session and we broke it out into different parts where people would do these different activities. I still have it. Actually, I should like
You should. That's
package that
amazing.
mural board.
Yeah.
So like having people do that. And then what we did was we identified common gaps. I had everybody in the group tell me where are the biggest gaps. A big gap is like, people finding me in the first place. I got to get on social media to do that. That's not really the most efficient. Or maybe a gap is like people don't know how to do their own hair. So even though I style their hair, when they go off on their own in between appointments, they actually don't have enough knowledge to be able to take care of their hair well. So like all these different gaps, we were just like identifying. And then we had the whole group kind of identify the biggest bright spots. So we identified like 3 separate places within this big map that were the most urgent to create resources for.
And you did
And
that together as a group. You guys kind of came up with it. That is so amazing.
And so that was really the biggest launching point from there. And then from there, it was just like, okay, let's sit and look at this thing and imagine what could we make that would make it make sense. And what's like the smallest, version of the product that we could make. So what we did in 2021 was launched an a la carte class, like e-commerce library of classes where people can purchase and they can become a member of Crownhunt in order to get access to those classes at a discount.
Got it.
And we ran ads on Facebook and Instagram about this, and we got like 2,500 stylists to sign up in like a couple of
Holy
weeks.
cannoli. Stephanie, that's huge. You had
It was,
2,500 sign up?
yep. And so then it
Wow.
was just like, okay, we got something. So that was the test. And
Yeah.
I was still working full time throughout all of that. And I had a child. My son was like 2, I think, at the time.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so then at that point is when I was like, okay, this is like something real. I need to like double down on this and figure out the pathway.
Amazing. I mean, what you just described is what I like to call the unsexy tasks. Like all the things people don't want to do. They're like, I just want to be on Facebook or Instagram and have the beautiful picture and be the thing. And it's like, dudes, do you know how much work goes into that? I am so grateful you just shared that whole thing because that's where the information is, right? It's like, as a business coach, I'm always like, but who's your customer avatar? People are like, God, I don't care. And it's like, that's the unsexy work that actually makes everything blow up. And I think you taking the time to do that and have a 3-hour Zoom session just to figure out where the gaps were and then get everybody's buy-in and contribution on how to actually deal with that is like, I don't know, I'm kind of in awe right now. I think I'm a little bit stuck. Like, I'm just like, that is amazing that you did that. And I hope everybody listening, I hope you guys like really take that to heart of like, one, what a human being has to do in order to be successful. But for you to turn that on and get 2,500, that's so fantastic. And I don't think that's the norm. But that also speaks to kind of your viewpoint that you really believe that stylists are actually like this massive entrepreneurial movement. Do I have that right?
I do. I really admired, like when I discovered like how much the industry didn't support stylists, I was amazed because I never knew that as a person who saw so many stylists. And I was like, wow, you would never know that they were under-resourced like this as a customer. And so that like immediately struck me. But then also as a person in tech, I was angry that the stylists were so unsupported because here I am, a Black woman in tech, and I was a Black woman in tech in 2013. So like there was like way less people of color in tech then. Like, now we're talking like 10 years later, it's even still not a lot.
It's still, yeah,
Way
you say it's
more
still
than
pretty
it was
uneven.
when I got in, like literally there was no one. And that position of being so rare in that space, but also seeing that I had resources available to me. Like as a employee at a tech company, it's like, man, there's like all these workshops and camps and speakers and thought leaders and oh my gosh, the amount of resources available to like grow your skills in tech and to network and to all these things and all this other technology that's been built to help you do it well, like marketing software and like all this stuff, right? Like there's an entire industry that's been built to support the tech industry, right?
Yes.
And I was just like processing that, like, how could there be this many resources for this stuff? And then like over here, There's like 1 million hairstylists in the country. We're not talking about a small number of people. How could there be no resources really for these people? Like the average hairstylist has to figure out their own health benefits. They have to find all their own customers. They have to rent their workspace often that they're in. And they are usually like 22 years old. They went to school for 2 years. They went to cosmetology school. Cosmetology school didn't teach them how to do 65% of the people's hair in the country. And they barely ever teach business. So you're effectively a 20-year-old entrepreneur with no business skills and lacking the skills to do half the people in the country's hair. How the hell is that supportive of you in any way, shape, or form? That's like a joke. It's a joke. And so when I was looking at like all these resources available to me in the tech industry, I couldn't help but compare, why is this the case? Well, the tech industry is, I don't know, 95% white. I don't know what it is now. And probably like 70% male.
Yeah.
The hair industry is 91% female and 38% BIPOC. So if you're just looking at it, I mean, there's a lot of economical reasons. I'm not trying to simplify it to just one point, but what I saw was a lot of under-resourced entrepreneurs who, by the way, have cash positive businesses, who, by the way, make all of us feel ready for our next big thing. And they just didn't have any of this stuff. And I
This
just
is amazing.
Atrocity. Like, it bothered me. I wasn't okay with it.
Yeah, and rightly so. And it's, I think, but the other thing that's so interesting is like the beauty and fashion industry is not hurting for money, right? So I know you were like being really smart about like, hey, the tech industry, there's a lot of value there. Absolutely. Like you and I are able to do this podcast because of all the tech advances, right? That's awesome. And we all pay a boatload of money to look and feel a certain way. And there's no lack of financial resource there to be able to say, hey, this is an industry that actually does deserve some of these services. The money, the market will bear that as well. I think it goes to will, right? Which is what you were saying, is there's a will over here to pay certain people, right? And then there's not the will here. And I think you going in and saying, well, let's fix that, I think is so powerful, because we all know that's how actual change is affected. And the fact that you're using a business that has been market tested, focus tested, unsexy tasked, right? Like you have done all the things to get in there and get that done, and that you saw success. I would say 2,500 out of the gate is pretty immediate. Like that's not what most people experience. And so it sounds like you're really onto the right track here. Is the feedback from the stylists been positive? How are they enjoying the experience of working with you?
Yeah, I think it has been positive. I think that it is a continued exploration. A lot of stylists have been really surprised that I did this, especially as a person outside of the industry, because the hair professional world, as I've learned it, is very insular. I don't see a lot of exposure of that world to other things. Like if you're in tech, you kind of will move into, you might be around finance stuff. You might be around legal people. You might be, you rub elbows with lots of adjacent industries and you can learn a lot from that. The hair professional world doesn't really do that. It's like super insular. And so there's a lot of resources I think that are available out there, but just not being connected to this industry. And that's one of the things that I really care about doing. And so I would say the feedback has been surprise and delight that this is a problem that, I'm trying to tackle, and that people with tech background would be interested in it. Like it's kind of surprising, but I think that it's obvious that those same resources should be applied here. And I think that you're talking about a group of entrepreneurs who figured out how to make it with like nothing. Those are the best ones to invest in, not the ones
Please.
to get like 18 months or 3 years of funding to cover losses. Like the ones you really want to invest in are the ones that like have figured out how to make it by any means necessary with no support. Those are the ones that really can leverage the actual support. But I will
Use it
say
well.
yeah, but I will say this, it's a continuous journey. It's not like, don't listen to this and think like, oh, I got it all figured out. No, we are still figuring it out now. And I think that's important to say, because it can feel like, oh, you arrived 2,500. No, after that 2,500, we've been grinding and we've had to really work hard to like turn that into something. And it's not easy at all. But feedback is so critical. And so I want to continuously be in that posture. So one of the things that we're doing now to make sure that the feedback feedback continues is in May, we're kicking off a mastermind in collaboration with a company called All Hair Academy. And what they do is All Hair Academy is really a 12-month mastermind coaching group where they teach hairstylists how to level up their businesses, hairstylists and salon owners to level up their business, and also to have a very inclusive workspace, an inclusive salon, because the hair industry is really like super segregated racially, is gender-wise, it's like a lot. It needs a lot of work in that department. And so that's what they do. And then with that, the Crownhunt subscription is bundled into that mastermind. And so what that does is it allows us to, because it can be very difficult with a tech company to get the feedback you need. People don't talk about that a lot. I mean, when I say it's hard, I mean, it's hard because think about when you get an email from some random software that you have paid for, and they're like, I love your feedback. Please fill out this survey.
Right.
Or would you need me to give me more information? You pretty much just universally ignore that. So you have to, as a business owner, you got to be really creative. Like, how are you going to get the feedback you need? And really, you need to have a personal relationship with a cohort in order to do that. So this mastermind is allowing us to, like, because they have monthly sessions and there's just a lot more involved in it.
Yeah.
So that allows me to step in and say, oh, okay, can I get a subgroup of this mastermind to participate? There will be many rewards. There will be opportunities for you to get something in return, because you got to give people something in return. You can't just be asking.
Always. Yes.
And so creating that. So that's like literally one of the biggest ahas I've had recently. So that'll be my advice. You want to always be getting feedback, and you need to have a personal relationship, not just having customers that come in and buy your product, which is great, but they are off and busy and they may not be interested in having a relationship with you to give you feedback. You need people who know that that is like what you're asking them for. You need to have something that you're giving them in return that's substantial. It really shows your gratitude, and it's worth investing in feedback. Like more than ads, like if you're going to put your money somewhere and you're early on, don't put your money in marketing always. I mean, you have to do some marketing. So I'm not trying to downplay marketing. I'm a marketer. You got to do some marketing, but you also have to get feedback, because what good is your marketing if you've never had any feedback? So if you got a tight budget, put some of that budget towards feedback, because you're going to have to give people gift cards. You might need to send them some stuff. You might need to do something to make them feel appreciated, even if it's like connecting them with a partner or whatever.
And it's also, but I think it's also then understanding that data that comes in too, right? Like that can be an investment, whether it's time or money or resources, to actually parse through that and make something intelligent out of it, right? So that when you go back and market, it's great. Yeah.
And it helps to have a hypothesis too before you get feedback. Now, sometimes that can be bad, but I think it's good because you're already thinking about your next business moves.
Yes.
You're already thinking, like, what if we made that product? What if we did this thing? What if I hired this person? Okay, well, keep those thoughts in mind. Now go ask for feedback related to that stuff so you can get responses to that. Because otherwise you can have, here's my plan, and here's a bunch of feedback that feels unrelated, but you're still working every day. How do you synthesize those two things? So I think it helps to have questions that are pertaining to your next steps. That way you're making those next steps from an informed place. And it's a discipline to do that.
And it does. And I think it's a mistake a lot of entrepreneurs make, is they kind of get like this tunnel vision of like, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, I want to do that. And they may have started by asking what the market wants, right? But then they forget to go back and check again. And it can be really expensive. It can be very costly, both to the reputation of the business and financially, to not have that set up. So I'm really grateful that you shared that. And Stephanie, there's one more thing that I know we both kind of wanted to talk about today, but can you share with the audience what it's been like for you as a human being, as a Black wife and mother and woman running this business? What has been your experience as an entrepreneur in 2023?
Yeah, I think starting with the human is real. Creating a business, and because this is my first startup I've ever done, to give you guys perspective. I worked in startups, but I've not launched a startup prior. As a human being, creating a business, like a real one that you intend to like live off of, and also other people will live off of, it's for grown folks. I say that a lot because it's true. If you're not mature, you're gonna find out just how not mature you are, and you're gonna have to work through your shit. Like, that's the truth. Like, running a business is very deeply a psychological process. And then now I'll say, and as a Black woman and wife and mom, there's so much psychology that you are receiving and have received throughout the duration of your life that subtly and not so subtly tells you that you can't do it. And even if you could do it, you can't do it the way you want to. There will be some major compromise that you need to just succumb to in order to actually pull it off. And you got to fight that in your brain. And it's a journey. And it depends on where you come from and what your life experiences are, how heavy or how loud those voices might be. But those are the things that you really have to work through. And you will absolutely hit setbacks. You will hit walls. You will be stalled. You will have money tightness. You will, like, every obstacle that you can imagine will happen. And so what will you do when you get there? How will you continue? What will you draw from? What will be your support in that season? All of that is like the realest of the freaking real. And you almost have to create in your mind. Sometimes you have to imagine things you've never even seen before. You know, depending on your background and how you were raised and what community you grew up in, you might not even know another entrepreneur, especially another entrepreneur that's actually successful and not just struggling, or an entrepreneur that's raised venture capital funds. Like, most people don't know that. I had never, well, in my years in tech, I did get to meet a ton of people like that. So that really helped me with my perspective and my belief in what was possible in my life. But like in 2022, this last year, we were 1 in 100 companies to receive venture capital funding that was Black female owned.
1 out of 100.
1 out of 100.
I know it's 3% female and it's about 1 to 2% people of color. So that's
but Black
amazing.
women is less than 1%.
Jeez Louise.
I
mean, if we look at the numbers, is that surprising? We want to change it. And I'm so glad you're talking about it, because we have to have that not be surprised. Like, I don't ever want that to be like, yeah, that makes sense, because that's what we do, right? Like, it's like, oh no, that's what we used to do. And it is getting corrected, right? To really stand in that. And I love what you shared about the psychological preparedness one has to have as a human to do this work, dealing with all of the different limiting beliefs we had in childhood, from society, from social norm. I mean, they're just freaking nonstop. And you're reminding me, I have a Post-it that I have on my computer all the time. And it says, who am I committed to being in the face of this? And I think, boy, has that gotten me through some tough times where it's like, okay, time to role model the way, time to be the one who says this, time to be the one who steps forward. And I'm really, really grateful, one, that you're doing this, that you are role modeling the way for so many humans, both in your community, people who don't even know who you are yet, people who'll see you on the cover of a magazine one day, like all the things that you're going to do to set this pace differently and to cause a change to happen here is just gorgeous. And I love that you're doing it through hair. It is so cool, Stephanie. Thank you so much for being with us today. And I believe you have a special gift for our listeners. Do I have that right?
Yes, so you guys can join Crownhunt right now. It's an annual subscription for just $99. We have about 15 classes on curly hair, on marketing, on cut, color, and care. So it's all of the core essentials for you to understand curly hair. And that is our $99 for the year. And we'll be switching that pricing up fairly soon. So it's kind of a limited time offer.
I love it. Awesome. So you guys, if you are interested in becoming a stylist, or you know someone who already is, and I don't know, you want to up your ability to like help 65% of the market, might be a good idea to go check this out for $99 a year. Sounds like an amazing deal. Stephanie, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I can't wait to hear more about your journey. I hope you'll come back in a year or so and let us know how things are going. Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.